What's up everyone, thanks for watching. Today I'm going to be building a couple of shop cabinets to go with the drill charging station I made last week, so let's get started. I'm building two cabinets for the shop, and they'll be made of Baltic birch plywood so that they match the furniture I've already built. And I'll start by breaking down all the plywood at the table saw, ripping all the parts to the right width. Each piece that I'm cutting to width now is going to be two case sides or two tops or two bottoms. Just make everything double wide, and then I'll come back and split them down the middle later. It just makes the plywood easier to manage for me. And it also ensures that I don't make any mistakes and that everything's cut the exact same width. After I'm finished with all my rip cuts, I'll set up a stop on my crosscut sled and cut all of the shelves, tops, bottoms, and case sides to the proper length. I'm using dados for the cabinet construction, so I'll set up my dado stack to the proper width here at the table saw. Then I'll go ahead and get everything installed and make a test cut on a scrap piece just to make sure that I got the width right. And once I know the dado stack's set up right, I'll go ahead and start cutting the grooves for the backs, the tops, and the bottoms. I'm cutting a groove 3/4 of an inch inset on the back so that I can install a French cleat and the cabinet will still sit flush up against the wall. On the top and bottom, I'm cutting the grooves 3/4 of an inch down so that the tops and bottoms sit in a groove completely, and this will be a little bit stronger than just making a shoulder here. One of the cabinets is going to have a fixed shelf while the other one's going to have an adjustable one. For the fixed shelf, I'm going to mark out where that shelf's going to go, and then I can cut the dado into case sides. Now that all the dados are cut in both cabinets, I can go ahead and remove the dado stack, reinstall my regular saw blade, and my riving knife. Now I'm ready to cut the case sides to their final width. I'll set the table saw fence to split the boards I've been working on right down the middle, and this will give me two equally sized case sides. Building the case sides like this just reduces my chance of being able to mess up. Over the years I've built a few cabinets that ended up with two left sides or two right sides because I cut all the grooves the exact same way on each panel. So this just makes things a little bit easier for me. Keeping the fence in the same position, I'll go ahead and split the two boards that'll become the tops for each cabinet. I'll make a quick adjustment and then I'll cut out the shelves and the bottoms. Next I'll head over to the workbench and do a test fit of all the pieces that I've cut out so far. I'll make sure all the parts fit together correctly, and then I'll make sure everything's sitting nice and square, and then I'll measure out with a tape measure to see what the dimensions of the back panel need to be. Then I can head over to the table saw and cut out the final length and width of that panel. For the cabinet with the adjustable shelf, I'll grab my drill bit, and the template to mark out where all the shelf pins are going to go. I'll drill a few holes on the front and back of each side of the cabinet using the template. I'll make sure to reference the template to the top of the case on each side to make sure that all the holes line up. Here I'm marking out and cutting some filler strips just made out of some scrap plywood to conceal the top and bottom of the cabinets. Normally you'd have face frames that cover where the case sides overhang the top and bottom, but these are going to be frameless cabinets, so I'll use this plywood as filler strips so that it makes everything look nice and neat at the end. Now I'm ready to start gluing up the cabinet cases. By now I've test fitted this a couple of times, so I'm pretty sure that the glue up will go nice and smooth. I'll start by applying glue to all the dados in the case sides. Then I'll install the top and bottom and finish everything up by installing the other cabinet side. After I get everything assembled, I'll come back and check everything with a square, but one advantage of building cabinets with dado construction is that the grooves tend to line everything up, and there's really little work you need to do during the glue up to make sure everything's good and square. The glue up of the second cabinet assembly went pretty much like the first. The only difference was this cabinet has a glued in center shelf. I'm going to use this cabinet to store all my paint and finishing supplies, so a lot of full paint cans and stuff on the top shelf. I figured the extra strength from the dado construction couldn't hurt. After everything was assembled, I applied just a couple of clamps to hold everything in place while I shot some brad nails in from the side of the cabinets into the top and bottoms. The filler strips that I made earlier for the top and bottom will just be held in with glue and a couple of brads as well. The cabinets would be plenty strong without the nails, just using the glue and dado construction, and I doubt they'll ever come apart. But adding the brads, the holes are easy to conceal, and it makes it so I don't have to use as much clamps, and I can handle them a lot quicker than having to leave them clamped up to dry overnight. With the cases finished and assembled, I can turn my attention to making the doors. These are going to be some pretty simple slab doors with full overlays, so all I have to do is get the measurements of the outside of the cases, and then I can head over to the table saw and cut them to their final width and length, and I'll do that for both cabinets. To install the hinges on the doors, I'm going to use this concealed hinge installation jig from Craig. I'll start by marking out where I want the hinges to go on the inside of the cabinet doors. I'll secure the doors to my workbench using a holdfast and a scrap board, just so the doors don't move around when I'm drilling holes in them. I'll leave a little bit of the door hanging over the front of the workbench so that I can install the Craig jig with some clamps in the spot where I want to put the hinges. Then I'll use the jig and a Forstner bit provided with the kit to drill a hole in the hinge location. The jig also comes with a template to allow you to drill pilot holes for where the screws are going to be located, so I'll drill those now too. Now all I got to do is remove the jig and install the hinges. This kit is pretty awesome, and for under 30 bucks, it's sure made life a lot easier. In the past, I've used a drill press and a stop block in order to place all these European style hinges, but I'll definitely be using this tool from now on. I'll leave a link below to the Craig jig in case you're interested in checking it out. To install the other side of the hinge to the case, I'll start by marking out how deep into the case they need to go. Then I'll position the door next to the case and making sure that it's lined up top and bottom, and just outline where the hinges need to be placed. Now I can pop off the case side of the hinges, line everything up with the lines that I made earlier, and go ahead and screw all the pieces into place. Then I can snap both hinge halves back together and open and close the door and make sure I got a good fit. I'll repeat the same process for the second cabinet, and then I'll open and close it to make sure everything aligns right. And if it doesn't, there's a lot of adjustability on these hinges, so I should have no problem getting everything lined up perfect. I decided not to add handles or pulls to these cabinet doors, so instead I'm going to add a recess at the bottom of each door to have something to grab onto and pull out on, so I'm over at the router table routing in the recesses here. Once I have the doors all fitted right to the cabinets, I'll come back over to the workbench and sand all the pieces down. I'm working with Baltic birch plywood again, so I have those nice thick veneers and I don't have to worry about sanding through them with the power sander. So I'll start with some 150 grit paper and work my way up to 220 grit. I'll go over the whole case with my sanding block and 220 grit paper just to knock off all the sharp edges. And then I'll repeat the entire sanding process on each of the doors, making sure to get into the recesses and clean out all the burn marks left from my router. Next, I'll grab a couple pieces of scrap board and start to cut out the French cleats that'll sit in the back of the shelf and mount it to the wall. I'll cut 4 pieces over at the miter saw, 2 of them the width of the back of the cabinets, and 2 of them a little bit narrower so that I can mount them to the wall and have some room to move the cabinets side to side and line them up. Then I'll head over to the table saw, tilt my blade over to 45 degrees, and rip the 45 degree bevel on all 4 pieces. I'll drill 3 countersunk pilot holes over at the workbench into each French cleat so that it accepts the screws that'll mount it to the cabinet and mount them to the wall. Then I'll install the 2 longer portions of the French cleat to the back of the cabinets. I'll install the French cleats right under the lip of the top of the cabinet so that I know that I got everything nice and level. And now I'm ready to start applying some finish to the cabinets. I'm using some Minwax wipe-on polyurethane for this, mostly because that's what I used on the drill charging station that these cabinets will be sitting next to, and also because it's inexpensive and that's what I had on hand. I took the hardware off the cabinets and the doors to apply the polyurethane, so once everything's had some time to dry, I'll go ahead and reinstall them. Then I'll grab a level and go install the other parts of the French cleat system to the wall. Then once the cleats are put up, I can go ahead and hang both cabinets on the wall. and once the cabinets are sitting in their place, I'll go ahead and reinstall the doors. I'll check to make sure that the doors still sit flush to the cabinet cases since I had the hardware off to do the finishing. And in this case I got lucky and everything lined up just right, but if it didn't, it would have been pretty quick and easy with all the adjustability in these hinges to get everything lined back up. I originally installed this power strip to the side of the charging station, but now that it's sandwiched in between these two cabinets, I'll just go ahead and move it out here to the side. I'm installing the adjustable shelf using some shelf bins that I bought in bulk at a cabinet store, but you could easily use a 1/4-inch dowel or something if you didn't have the pins. And now I'm ready to start loading up the cabinets. I'll use the adjustable cabinet to store some of my bigger items like gallon jugs of glue and shop towels and some of the things that I wouldn't be able to fit with the fixed side. And I made the cabinet with the fixed shelf to be able to hold all my finishing supplies. All my stains and paints and boiled linseed oils and mineral spirits, all that stuff that could add up to be a lot of weight. And that about wraps this project up. I'm really happy with how these cabinets turned out with the exposed birch plywood and the recessed door handles. I think everything looks slick and good in the shop. So I'm happy that I can keep the shop a little bit more organized, and I got a long ways to go. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you on the next build.